Texas Frightmare. How are you? Welcome to Texas Frightmare Weekend, presented by Arrow Video. My name is Ryan Turek. I am the co-host of the podcast Shockwaves. I don't know if anybody listens to that. I'm also the director, development producer over at Blumhouse Productions. We are a media sponsor for Texas Frightmare this year. I used to work for ShockToYouDrop.com and Dread Central. And this is my first time at Texas Frightmare, which is pretty cool. You guys really know how to bring the love of horror to this area, so thank you for that. This is a daunting task. Just hosting a panel for the thing, no big deal. These guys don't need any introduction whatsoever. We've got Wilford Brimley rolling up on stage. Mr. Dean Cunding.
Yeah!
Mr. Keith David.
Woo!
And Tom Waits. Guys, come on out. That music. Gentlemen, welcome.
Greetings.
What's happening?
It's a gift.
That's how you make an entrance.
Welcome to Texas.
Love
Thank
you.
Yeah. So many cameras. All right. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you very much for coming out. Where do we begin? There's been so many special features and so many DVDs and so many things released about the thing. So, my belief is always tackle it like not everybody is an expert on this movie. So we might ask some questions you guys might already know the answers to, but there are some that might not know these answers. So let's just begin right from the get-go. You know, when I was in film school, Bill Lancaster's script for The Thing was bound and sealed in our library in New York City. And I asked them to crack it open and I read it, and I thought it was just an amazing, thoughtfully written script. When it came your way, what were your initial thoughts? You know, and how did it come to you? Did John present it to you himself? Did the producers? Did the studio? How did the thing come your way, and what were your initial thoughts on the script? We can go right down the line. Start with you, Dean. Sure.
Okay, very good. You know, it's very interesting. The thing is an ironic sort of property movie, because when I was first talking to John, when he said, so Deborah and I are going to make this movie called Halloween, and he had this device in his house. It was a 3/4-inch tape machine. And he could run movies from this thing in his house. And the movie, he said, let's look at this movie because I think there's suspense and everything. And it was The Thing. He loved it.
Yeah.
So, obviously there's an homage to it because in Halloween itself, what are the kids watching on television Halloween night? But The Thing. So I should have known right from the start. But, you know, so it was no surprise when, John and I had done a couple things. He said, we're going to make this movie of The Thing, a remake. And I thought, of course, how appropriate, but also what a great, adventure. And it was, because it was the first big studio movie that we made, and it had a bigger canvas on which we could paint. We had exteriors in Alaska. We had these big sets at Universal Studios. So it was one of my most interesting adventures at the time.
That's great. And for the actors, what did you guys think first time you read the scripts? If I recall, the first page had all the characters listed. and then it had all these kind of little anecdotes about them. I don't know if that was in the original draft you guys had read, but it just kind of, because it was such a large ensemble piece. So what did you guys think? Did you have to audition for these roles? Did you audition as a different character initially?
Yeah, with me, it was that I was in a play at the time that was kind of a hit called American Buffalo, and John Carpenter and Kurt Russell came to see it. And so the next day they asked me to come in and audition for it. And I had been doing this play for a really long time, but I couldn't wait to get the hell out of here. So it was the first really good job that came along, and I'm so grateful and so lucky that it happened to me. That's how it happened to me. I auditioned and I got it.
I also auditioned. I gotta say, I'm really grateful to the guy who turned it down. I think they were, because I got the audition and it was about a month, at least a month, before I heard anything. And I had auditions for some movies before, but this is the first one I got. It was my first movie. So I was... Yeah, it was great. As I recall, I don't know, what you believe half of what you hear, but Roger, who got cast in Magnum P.I. I think initially he was going to go with Roger, but he was already attached to Magnum, by this time. I guess they had signed contract, and it was this movie versus TV, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, every time I see Roger, I say, thank you, man. So that's how it came my way.
What was the question?
How did the thing come to you?
How did I get that job?
Yeah.
Well, like most actors, I was out of work looking for a job. And I was introduced to John Carpenter, and we had a conversation, and that's how I got the job. And I didn't realize it was such a big deal till here lately.
Jesus.
Glad I got the job. I was able to pay some bills and stuff like that. But look at here, all these folks in the thing.
Wilford, what was your first impression of John Carpenter when you first met him? How did you guys click?
Hell, we had a nice conversation. I don't know whether you call that an audition or a meeting or whatever it was, but it was fun. He didn't ask me to do any readings or anything like that. You must have heard that I don't read very good. So. Anyway, we got together and it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
He's a great guy, by the way.
Oh yeah. I think everybody here is a fan of John.
Yep.
I gotta tell you, I'm gonna give John Carpenter credit for another thing in my life that was very, very important. He wrote a Western script for John Wayne, and John Wayne inconsiderately died.
How dare you?
John Carpenter came to me and asked me if I would do that script. Well, now that was an honor, and it was a good script. It was a lot of fun to do, and I will always remember him and be grateful to him for that.
Nice.
Called Blood River.
Blood River.
Nice. Nadine, what kind of stylistic choices did you want to make to pay homage to the original, if any? Because the original is very much a 1950s,
Yeah, I know that we really wanted to take it somewhere different. The basic premise, of course, is these guys trapped and paranoia takes over and all of that. But other than that, we really sort of wanted to expand the environment. They were sort of stuck in the studios in those days. So it was really an idea to open it up considerably, which we did because the opening sequence we shot out in the middle of nowhere in Juneau. It was half an hour by helicopter to get to this place where we stayed as a research camp. And they built the setup in the middle of nowhere on the Alaskan and Canadian border. So we were determined to make it a big sort of looking film, and which we tried to do, and I think we accomplished that pretty much.
I think you did too, yeah. For the cast, guys, can you talk about the early creative talks you had with John in prep for the film before principal photography? You know, what did you guys discuss in terms of, you know, the ensemble dynamic, the paranoia, all of that kind of stuff? And how was Kurt involved in kind of those discussions? You know, John and Kurt probably had a shorthand at that point, having worked together a couple times. So can you just take us into the creative process early on before shooting?
As I recall, we rehearsed for 2 weeks. About 2 weeks. And Kurt, Charlie Hallahan, Richard Masser, these guys, from my vantage point, were the sort of sci-fi buffs. They knew the genre very well. I guess one or two of them consulted and script doctored things, but they knew exactly, you know, how to look for in the script those things that would blow up as anomaly, you know, inconsistencies. Like in science fiction, in any world you create, I'm going to believe everything you say as long as you follow the premise. And what didn't ring true? You know, if the thing does this, well, then it couldn't do that. It wouldn't kill a person like a normal person would kill a person. And we started pointing things out like that. And we went around like that for 2 weeks before John said, look, this is the script we're shooting it.
You know, it was kind of like working on a play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Kurt was just as involved in every discussion and every joke. You'd never know that he was a big movie star. He was just like, you know, you sitting right there. And Charlie Hallahan, I'd like to just take a moment, and Richard Dysart, who aren't here anymore, were two of the greatest guys you could ever possibly meet and know. And I had the occasion to hang out with them a little bit after the movie, and you know, they were great in the movie, and I really wish they could be here. But to answer your question, I think...
So did they. They're dead.
To answer your question, John Carpenter created a great atmosphere.
35 years ago, I don't remember all that shit.
All right.
You're just going to end up being Will Straightman, so get...
For all of you guys, was there anything that going into the principal photography that you just didn't think was going to work, or something that you did think was going to work? I mean, this was very ambitious with a lot of practical effects and just there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to be done with each scene. You know, that needs to make the paranoia work. So
A great moment in time, which I've learned. You know, it was a great place to learn something from it. It was a lesson of life that I remember till today. And it was Joe Polis' first film and my first film. And the three of us had a scene walking down the hall. Now, as we had that discussion for 2 weeks about what the thing does and what the thing doesn't do, there was a moment when somebody enters the room and the body gets revealed. John likes to do that, dead body behind the door thing. And we had this, and he had a shovel in his chest. And we had been discussing that the thing doesn't kill people like normal people kill people. It would find some other way to do it. It would find some other way to do it. So we, now again, I said, it's my first movie. I don't know what the protocol is and shit. So, but when you're about to shoot, when the camera's about to roll, the bell goes on. There's a bell that rings, it alerts everybody's attention. Stop talking, be still, we're shooting. So the bell went on, and nothing happened. We're just standing there. So while we're standing there, now at this time when the bell goes on, the director puts on the headphones because we have little mics, and he's listening to me sing, but nothing happened. So the three of us are standing there going, I don't know why we're shooting this scene anyway, because the scene is only going to be cut. I mean, he already said that the thing doesn't do this, the thing doesn't do this, and we go in there and he opens the door and the thing is, I don't know why we're doing this. Now, it was nothing that we would not have said in front of him if he were there and we had an opportunity to have this discussion. We would have talked about this to him. Now, and I've done 2 pictures with John. I have never, ever heard him raise his voice. He has never raised his voice. But this time, he came around the corner. We're shooting this fucking scene because I like this fucking scene. That's why we're shooting this scene. And the 3 of us had asshole pucker like you would not. 3 years old going, and he just like, shut it down, shoot!
What's interesting is my perspective on that moment was the camera's looking down the hallway and you guys are going to appear around the corner. The bell goes off, it's quiet, and I look over to John because normally he's going to yell, action, right? And he's just standing there, and he's standing there. And I think that's kind of weird. And he turns to me and says, just a moment, I'll be right back. He walks down the hallway, disappears around the corner. There's some silence, and then there's a little bit of... and then he calmly... and he says to me, okay, now let's roll.
That's funny.
For you, I mean, shooting the practical effects. What was your shorthand with Rob team in terms of getting all the effects pulled off?
Well, Rob was very unique in that he had this really interesting imagination. He would work all night. He was a little bit obsessive about his creatures. And he would show up in the morning after, he'd been working for a week or so. And he'd say, okay, so here's what happens. And this thing, and there's a cable here, and then this is going to move, and this is going to... But he was always very kind of sensitive about the appearance of the thing. He said, now, there's some brush marks here I don't like, and I'm not sure about this shape here. So don't put any light on this, and it would be good if you didn't like this either. And he would actually have loved the fact that he did all of this work, and then that we don't put any light on it, and the thing is completely dark, and we can't see it. He's very sensitive. So it was always sort of just lighting a little bit of this, and it was, and he was actually very right. And then I'd say, this area here looks a little, he'd say, oh, okay, and he'd squirt some KY gel on it. And, you know, it was a very, very meticulous process to make this.
Wilford, anything you want to add about the KY?
Down here, we're talking about training dogs.
Wilford, Keith, Tom, for you guys, I mean, what did you guys do when the shooting day wrapped up? When did you guys go hang out? Did you isolate Wilford because his character started getting isolated in the film? Just let him do something else?
I'll tell you a great joke. The three of us, mostly Polis and Tommy and I, when the film first started, for the first couple of days, they would say, especially me and Joel, listen, we don't know if we're gonna get to you until after lunch. Call in. Go hang out and call us at lunchtime. And at first we're feeling kind of guilty, you're making all this money and you're not working. And I'm like, oh, whatever. So we would meet, one day we were meeting at, what's the name of that place, PCA?
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Gladstone.
Gladstone. We're meeting at Gladstone's. And somebody told me a joke. And so there's a stone wall. There's a stone wall between the restaurant and on the other side is the beach. So we're facing the highway on the asphalt and tell this joke. Guy goes to insane asylum, and he's with the doctor and making rounds. And to make a long story short, they pass this one room, and there is a man bouncing peanut shells off of his penis. And the doctor just keeps going, and the guy goes, wait, doc, what's with this guy? He said, don't mind him, he's fucking nuts. So we just told this joke. So we decide that we're gonna go to the beach, and we're sitting on the wall, so we just flip our legs over the wall, and there's a bunch of peanut shells right there. It was a location joke. It was funny at the time.
You get it?
Tommy, any recollections?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I remember, Keith and I went to acting school together. We were in Juilliard together. I was a year ahead of him. And I want to take one of those pictures of the two of us and say, this is what I went to Juilliard for. Because, we studied Shakespeare. But we had a really good time. One of my favorite memories is that the great, and I don't use that word lightly, Will Brimley had us over for dinner one night. He made dinner for my girlfriend and I, and was gracious enough to, host us. And I remember sitting there till like about midnight, just listening to these amazing stories, because he's had quite a life, whereas my life has mostly been acting. His life has been real life. He was a real cowboy, like a real one. And I've basically just been an actor, so it's good for me too. It was great experience, the whole thing. The best job I ever had, I don't know.
Wilford, do you have anything?
When I got off the first few nights, I had a root canal.
Oh.
So I had to go to the dentist. But we got it done okay and went on, made the show, and it turned out okay. Look at here, guys. Look at this. You believe this? The thing. Wow.
That's right, the thing.
You know what? I'm grateful. I don't mean to sound like a wise guy. I'm truly grateful for the life I've had, and the living that you folks have allowed me to make. I love each and every one of you for it. And if you want to know how to train your dog to do all that stuff, see me later.
Can you guys share some of your favorite Kurt Russell stories working with Kurt? Dean, we'll start with you.
Well, my perspective on Kurt has always been sort of the behind the scenes. You know? I mean, you guys relate to him as an actor and his stories and stuff like that. I remember, I'll try to make this short. We went up to scout up in Alaska, or actually in British Columbia for the Loop. And the first couple days, looking at the set up on top of this glacier and the beautiful, and we were in the middle of nowhere. It was a long bus ride to get to Stewart, British Columbia. And so it was like the second night we were up there, John and Kurt and myself, and Larry Franco, the AD. They said, let's go get hyderized. And I said, what's that? Well, somebody else was hyderized. So you went across the border into Alaska to Hyder, Alaska, and it was nothing but bars. It existed for the miners up there to go on Sunday and get drunk. So you go over there, and we went over there, and the forwards are there. Hyderize is this giant shot of Everclear, which is all pure alcohol, and you have to chase it with a beer. It's a very abusive process. So we all did that, boom. And Kurt took to the ceremony. And so he had a second round or whatever. He was incredibly polluted by the time we got back to the hotel that night. And John said to Kurt, you know what? You're going to be so hungover tomorrow when we start working, it's not going to work. Kurt says, are you kidding? I can be McCready no matter what condition I'm in. And I'm standing there thinking, well, that's pretty good. He said, I'm an actor. John says, well, I don't think that's true. He said, yeah, just a second, I can be McCready for 30 seconds. And he straightens up and says, Mac, I'm worried. What's going to happen to us now that the thing is loose? How is that? Testimony to a really good actor.
That's right. One of my favorite Kurt stories is, you know, Kurt grew up in this business, so he knew the business of the entertainment industry very well. And I had a lot to learn from him, and I was enamored by him. But the thing, you know, he used to make fun of Joel Polis and I. We'd be talking about a scene, and Kurt would come up and say, what are you guys discussing? Your motivation? But, you know, he's a really serious actor, ironically. Before I started shooting the movie, he did a film for television about Elvis Presley, where he played Elvis Presley. Did you shoot that?
No, I didn't, but...
It was great.
Yeah.
Kurt was amazing. I mean, and he said that when he had the meeting with John about doing it, John said to him, well, meaning Kurt, if this asshole can do it, then I guess we can do the movie. And, you know, that stuck with me about him. This carefree, nonchalant attitude, but with profound and dignified results. That's what I find fascinating.
Well, you know, it's interesting because Kurt confided in me, or a couple of us one time. His father was an actor, Bing Russell.
Bing Russell.
And Bing always played the sidekick in the westerns and so forth. He never became a star. And when Kurt was hired by Disney to become their sort of new young child protege star, Kurt says his father came to him and said, okay, Kurt, they're going to be paying you a man's salary. You do a man's job. And he said he never forgot that.
Yeah, great guy to work with.
He was.
Yeah, yeah, he is. He's good. Do you have a Kurt story? You spend a lot more time with him.
You know, I do remember him leading the pack on a practical joke that wasn't funny. And during one night, we all, you know, there wasn't a hell of a lot to do in that time. So we spent a lot of time getting hiderized. And when we weren't at the Hider Inn getting hiderized, there was another bar. And that place, I don't know what it was called. I can make shit up, but I don't know. But I don't know how I got onto it. Oh, somebody at that bar turned us on to a flaming fuzzy fud pucker. Flaming Fuzzy was a double shot of tequila in a highball glass, inside of a saucer filled with Yukon Jack.
Oh.
You squeeze the lemon into the tequila, throw that down, light the Yukon Jack, blow it out, and sip it and drink. Well, I found that fascinating. So, me, and I can't remember the big guy that was special effects, he was from Kentucky, I remember. And me and him sat back throwing. And, you know, I had all this per diem in my pocket, you know. I'm like, so, hey, flaming fuzzies for everybody! And I remember lining up like 7 of them. And I had a few takers, but most people weren't takers. So I said, well, shit, if you're not gonna drink it, I'm gonna drink it. Until I just went, it was like that commercial, you know, when the guy slaps and the guy goes, and my friend wouldn't let me lay there by myself, so here he is picking me up and get into the, and there was one driver, a little guy, who was the transport guy from the hotel to the bar. It was the night that we were all riding. So he puts me in the back of the truck. We're in Latin, it's cold. I don't know how I survived. But he kept taking me back from the bar to the hotel back because when they asked him, why didn't you just leave him at the hotel? He said, I can't lift this fucker! So then all the rest of the guys, being led by Kurt, said, come on, let's go carry him to his room. But my room was on the end of the hall, and in between my room and where we had to come to the hallway was John Carpenter's room. So Kurt gets the idea. I know. Just put him down here. And I just vaguely remember this. And so they put me down, and now I'm passed out. And they scatter, and one guy knocks on John's door.
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning. And he comes out and like trips over. What the fuck? Not funny.
Great meeting John Carpenter.
I knew Kurt Russell when he was a little boy. And I know his dad pretty well, and they're wonderful people. Kurt Russell was a ball player, a baseball player. I mean a good one. He was talked to by the professional baseball scouts. Now, he was a really, really good baseball player. And a nice kid, and I always found him to be a gentleman. I got to know him pretty good. He was interested for a while there in learning how to rope steers. He got smart enough to not bother much with that. Anyway, he and I, to this day, are, I would say, reasonably good friends. I have great respect for him, and I don't know how good an actor is, but he's a hell of a good guy.
Now, before we go to audience questions, if you guys have questions, start thinking about them. To you guys, have you been following lately the kind of essays and new fan theories as to who might be the thing that kind of go out there in the internet universe, or do you guys just kind of stay hands off and not read too much about it? Dean, you actually talked about this recently about I light and trying to hint at who might be the thing. And who might
it's always been a big question.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the thing? Or either of our guys at the end, and we even asked John, he said, I don't know. But, so I know that a couple of times, we tried to lace in little things, and I had this idea that during the blood test to sort of foreshadow, who might be it by not putting an highlight in what's his name's eyes. So he is the only one with completely dark eyes with no sparkle in it, dead eyes. And I revealed that for the first time, I guess, I don't know, a couple of months, 6 months ago. And I was surprised. This social media stuff is fast,
Oh yeah.
It's like
Everything you just said is already up on Twitter.
Well, it's like the next week, it had gone around, and I said, "Uh-oh, what did I do?" But it was actually a conscious thing that I had done, and then had just sort of kept a secret. So it was an interesting reveal to see, how many fans and how avidly they're interested in that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Keith, what are your thoughts on the finale?
It wasn't me. Of course, it's the most frequently asked question. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but I do recall that someone said they thought it was me because there was no breath, air, but I think I was closer to the fire, which would have accounted for that.
Yeah.
I don't really remember. I think that we played it. Whatever. The ending is what you see, what they chose. But I think we did it two ways. We filmed it once when he told either one of us we were the thing, and then we played it like neither one of us is the thing. And we had but both of us had the suspicion that it couldn't. We both had time away from each other long enough for it to be either one of us. Who knows?
I think the tip-off was when my belly popped open and I ate no Alaska.
Did any of you guys check out, in the early 90s, Dark Horse Comics did a proper follow-up sequel to The Thing. Did any of you check it out? Because you wound up being The Thing, I believe. That's the way they wrote it. And John always said that was if he was ever going to do a sequel, that would be it. But it was a pretty good comic. I'm sure you guys, have you guys read The Thing comic book that came out?
I've got it signed.
Got it signed. Nice. All right, let's open it up to audience questions. Is there a mic? No? Okay, we'll just shout really loud. Yeah.
What was your reaction when the film came out commercially?
The question was, what was your reaction when the film came out commercially?
I was really disappointed, that it didn't get the. I remember saying to my agent, but it's a really good movie, you gotta go see it, you gotta go see it. He's like, no one cares, it didn't get good reviews, next. And I know it was a really big disappointment for John. I mean, way more than me, I'm just an actor. This was his vision, and he had put a great deal into it. So the disappointment, proportionately, was far greater, I'm sure, for him than me. And I was shocked that critics didn't get it. I was stunned because I sat in the movie theater going, hey, this is really good, I mean, I wish I'd get out of the movie and stop messing it up, but it was really good.
Well, it's kind of like it's got second legs from, video to DVD.
Yeah.
It's like it's just gone and gone and gone. And then you read those critics reviews, you're like, what?
Nobody asked me, but when it came out, E.T. had eclipsed everything in this genre. E.T. was had been like 3 months #1 in the country, still running strong. And we came out, Poltergeist, was that one other thing? But, and then,
I think it was Blade Runner.
but and I think Universal wanted it to be the big summer blockbuster. And Hollywood is in the blockbuster business. They're not in the movie-making business.
Right.
If it's not, out of the pocket in the first 2 hours. And to my mind, it would have been a bigger hit if it had opened in October or November during the break, right before Christmas or Christmas. But because it came out in the summer with all those other things going on, its chance was less, and they didn't get it. I mean, we're here today.
Damn right.
Exactly. Obviously, they didn't get it. Because I remember reading the review that was horribly disappointing when the guy says, "Oh, it's so horrible. It's just you can't take your kids." I said, "Well, don't take your fucking kids." to a horror convention. I mean, it was just a stupid comment. I mean, because the special effects were, for that time, was incredible. I remember being under my seat going, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's because a lot of stuff was done in post." And so I was seeing for the first time what we were seeing, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is great! That dog, that image is blazing."
Rubber dog.
Yeah, we have a mic now for audience questions.
Hi. So first, Mr. David, if you're not doing voiceover work, you need to fire your agent. Second, Mr. Brimley and the other actors, I know you film out of sequence a lot of times. Were the actors aware, were they told when they were infected and when they weren't before you filmed your scenes?
No. I didn't know much about it. What I do is I show up each day and he says we're going to do this scene and I try to get through with that the best I can. I didn't know what was going on. I'm dumbfounded. I tell you that it's a pretty good indication of how much attention you should pay to critics. Critics shut down a play overnight that had a song in it called All the Things You Are. But they leave Les Miserables playing for 40 fucking years. They named the show the most forgettable music. Exactly. So don't read them. I trust you people. Critics and a lot of huppity-hups talk down to you folks. I talk up to you people because you indicate to me what you like and what you want and what you believe, and nobody is fooled that's sitting in this room. You get it a long time before they did. Thanks for that, too.
had a question for Dean and Keith. There was, if this movie did well, there was a rumored sequel. Did John ever talk to you guys about a direct sequel where they found you and Kurt in the ice and kind of brought you back to mainland?
It was only that, a rumor. Believe half of what you hear. It was talked about, but it never fruitioned.
Yeah. If the movie did better, do you think it would have happened?
More than likely. You know, I mean, it's too bad. I mean, obviously, I think that over the years it has made more than its money back.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I mean, like I said, it's a testament to, you know, don't believe critics, but you know, I mean, the film has lasted. We're still talking about it. I mean, it was some wonderful things going on there. The ensemble, the writing, the effects, and the cumulative effect. By the time that movie's over, you're exhausted.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you're emotionally worn out as well as visually, like, astounded. You know, you don't come across that every day.
That's why it's in the top 5 of all science fiction lists.
I didn't know that. But
It is.
Isn't that fantastic?
And Dean, in your conversations with John following the release of the thing, did you guys ever have conversations?
You know, it was, the sequel was a favorite sort of game for some of us on the crew. It was, as we were coming back and as we were working at Universal, we were all writing our version of the sequel. You know, the military shows up and rescues the two of them, and then it continues in the Antarctic at the new place, and then somebody said, no, I have a better idea. They actually get back to the U.S. and you know, so we had sequels ready to go. They didn't believe us that it was going to be good. And John was very disappointed. It was his first major studio production. It was one of my first majors, Universal, big stages, full of sets and stuff. And he was very disappointed and became disenchanted with the big studio, which is why he, you know, then went on to make smaller films that he could do. So no, I don't think he ever wanted to face the prospect of trying to work where it would have been a Universal again, a major studio, and trying to get a sequel done.
Yeah. Was there anything left on the cutting room floor that you wish had been like released as part of the film?
The shovel.
Oh yeah, once we shot a scene, David Clennon and I had a scene, and John cut it. I'm mixing up two stories. We also were caught on the microphone, because right before we shot it, John said, we're not going to do that scene, fellas, it's cut. And it was like a whole page scene. So Clennon and I were like, that son of a, how could he do that to us? And John, he didn't get mad, he just stuck his head around the corner and said, I heard every word you said. I was mortified for a week. I walked around going, what the? But Will probably doesn't remember this, but Will said, because I told him about it, he said, write him a letter, tell him you're sorry. So I did, and it worked out. You know, it shows you the kind of guy he is, you know. He's a very sensitive man, John. I mean, he doesn't give that impression to most people because, you know, he has to protect himself, but he's a deeply sensitive guy. And it teaches you keep your mouth shut when the microphone's over.
Also teaches you when you walk off the set and you're not on the scene, I always unhook my mic. I detach it, so if I'm gonna have a conversation, you ain't hearing it.
Question, Mike.
Did you gentlemen enjoy the prequel, and do you think it was just to the original?
Well, it's interesting. I got a phone call from my agent who's up in Toronto and said, you know, they're going to make a prequel up here. Would you be interested? I said, wow, Yeah, it's kind of full circle, different people, but yeah. So she called up the company and said, hey, here's an opportunity. You have the same look, the same guy, the same, and they said, well, we'll get back to you. A day later, they said, no, they've decided they wouldn't want you involved. The director said he'd be too intimidated. And I said, oh, well, that's unfortunate, but, so I went to the prequel out of morbid curiosity. And I'll have to say, it was kind of an homage to the first one. It was an awful lot of stuff that was borrowed. But I was kind of overwhelmed,
What about you, gentlemen?
I never saw the whole thing through. There were, people told me about it. And so it never really, terribly interested me, because and especially because I didn't know that. And I thought, wow, how stupid. So, I keep promising myself I'm going to sit down and watch the whole thing so I can answer that question better, but right now I can't.
Let's give one
First
more
time I
question.
ever heard of it.
All right, one more question. All right, so oftentimes when you read the script, you may form one opinion of what's going on or how you perceive something. So was there anything in which you read it one way and arrived for shooting or rehearsals or anything, only to have that expectation twisted around completely and go, oh, I totally misread that or interpreted that differently and were disappointed or thought that it changed your overall impression of what the movie was going to be?
Everything changes from when you read it to how it's almost like a script is like a blueprint, and compared to what you end up shooting, it changes so much. A good director like John and Norman Jewison and a couple other guys, they watch and listen to their actors first, and they see what they do, and then they let the scene inform them how they're going to shoot it. But no, I think pretty much because we had those 2 weeks of rehearsal, it came out pretty darn close to what we had worked on in the room. The relationships formed, alliances formed, and people took different sides on different issues. There were a few good arguments. Peter Maloney is quite a fierce intellectual fellow, and he had a few strong points of view in the room. Masser, Joel Polis, another smart actor. And like I say, Coppola does that too. He listens to his actors and he lets them inform him about the scene. That was my experience with this.
All right. Well, guys, Dean.
Just one little anecdote that I don't know if this is revealing, and everybody knows it already, but we'll find out. A lot of times I teach at film schools and so forth, and one of the things they do is ask to run the movie with the sound turned down and have me comment. And there's one thing I pointed out recently, and I don't know if everybody is aware of this, that there's a scene where everybody's, worried about, I think it's when Wilfred's going crazy or whatever. And Keith runs in down the hall and says, what's going on? Well, just prior to that, he'd had a little accident, broke his wrist, I think, wasn't it?
2 bones in my hand.
2 bones in his hand, had a cast on him. We're right in the middle of shooting, and it's like, how in the world are we going to cover that? So we had the makeup people put on a special thing and a wrap, and he was told to hide his hand. for a lot of the shooting. And he did it pretty well. I don't know if every now and then you can see it, so I don't know if everyone knows that Keith broke his wrist and was acting under hazardous conditions. Was it a motorcycle accident or a bar
No,
fight?
I was just learning how to drive,
Oh,
and I hit the center divider, totaled my car, and broke my hand. And,
So-
and it was, you know, and I remember that first day was Hollywood Jim, who was the set painter. I put on, you know, I had, because I still had stitches, but it was okay, but he had a surgical glove, and he mixed the paint. But I still had it was like a big old hump.
Yeah.
It was still swollen.
So
So I had to hide my hand. So if you, I mean, I looked at the movie, and most of the time, whenever you see me standing around, I'm always standing behind a table, somewhere where my left hand is not exposed.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap up. Let's give a round of applause.